Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, the co-author of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. You can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. Join with me as always, Neil Orfield from Stochastic, the high stakes podcast. On the contrary, the NFL strategy tournament show, plenty of stuff going on. The fantasy cruncher settings videos and the showdown stuff, and then you're doing more. I think these days you're doing more content than I am.
I might be. I'm doing a ton of. Mondays and Thursdays in particular, doing the showdown stuff with the 2 videos on demand, plus the article I'm writing, plus the live before lock. It's a lot of content. Mondays, Thursdays being my biggest days, and then of course I come on this show on Mondays. So yeah, it's tends to be a fairly busy day. And then I do 2 tournament strategy shows where I'm the analyst. I do On the Contrary where I'm the host. I do High Stakes where I'm the host. And then now I'm on the Sunday Night Football live before lock as well. So. I've been keeping busy. Although this week though, it's I get a little bit of a break here. We are doing the matchup show that happens every week. Instead of doing my Thursday or Wednesday morning strategy show, they're doing the matchup show for Thanksgiving on Wednesday, and then instead of doing On the Contrary on Friday, they're doing the matchup show for the main slate on Friday. So I get a little bit of a reprieve this week with Thanksgiving schedule.
So that'll give you time to save your entire Saturday nights to late swap in MMA.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'll be doing. No, I'll be celebrating. We're actually hosting my wife's family for Thanksgiving on Saturday. So probably not going to be
no
playing
MMA.
MMA.
This coming Saturday, there's no MMA.
Oh, there is none. Okay.
No. Right. So you don't have to worry about it. No swapping. It's amazing that they announced DraftKings late swap for MMA. People are up in arms. You have the casual people, the slappies, the swap slappies, as I call them, parading around for their $8 is now like, oh, but what happens if if someone's mid card cancellation, which happens like 3 times a year maybe, and then all the people that have an edge, like myself, or people that can set up systems to late swap and optimize, they're like, I don't want to spend 6 hours doing this. This is like, dude, we have enough of an edge with no late swap. Why now I have to just hang around and do this all, knowing that other people are going to do it? So now you feel like if you don't, you're giving up something. And then, of course, the first slate they haven't enacted, the fucking main event gets canceled mid-card.
Yeah, it's the worst possible outcome for those of us who want them to get rid of late swap is, of course, the very first slate. It's like, glad we had late swap. This is the exact scenario that they wanted late swap for. So for those of us who are hoping that they'll get rid of it after all the backlash, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
But you could still cash that minus 5,000 ticket on them fucking it up the first slate.
Yeah, so funny thing about that. So I was not planning on playing the slate at all. I literally hadn't entered anything, was looking at it. So I do the Saturday strategy show with Greg, which starts at noon Central Time, which was the exact time that the MMA slate started. So we're literally 3 minutes before the slate. I'm like, a lot of these contests are not going to fill. I wasn't planning on playing, but I'm thinking about it a little bit. And then Greg brought up, he was like, I think that there's, at least a 20% chance that they fuck it up and that they're going to have to refund all the entry fees and it's going to be a free roll anyway. And I was like, you're right. Like I'm giving up edge, but like on top of like the fact that there's a little bit of overlay, there wasn't actually overlay. It was pretty close to filling the main contest, which is the only one I played. But I was like, I'm going to have so much FOMO if this ends up being a free roll. And you're absolutely right that there is a very good chance. So I ended up playing like 11 lineups in the main contest is all I did last second. And the only decision that I made going in was, okay, I'm going to push off everybody that I can that's reasonable. But then there was the one guy started mid show for us. I forget what his name was. Chase something. Not Chase Sherman. Not Chase Sherman. No, he was I forget what his name was, but he's the guy who he only got like 70. He won, but got like 76 fantasy points at like 8,500. And I had him locked into all 11 of them. I decided, whatever, I'll just eat that, have him in all my lineups. Hope he does well. Greg said that he thought that the guy had like 13 takedowns.
Brady Heastan, right?
Yeah.
For some reason, the first round, it's like, oh, he got 3 takedowns, and if it's not a takedown, at least that counts as a reversal or a sweep. And they credited him with like 1 takedown, nothing else. It's like, how did that work out?
Not very well for me, I'll tell you that, because I had him locked into all my lineups. The way my first experience with late swapping went, I was like, I have 0% chance of winning this contest. I'm just shooting for min swaps at this point. So I just literally said, okay, I'm going to switch to, or I'm going to put minimum of 2 players difference in each lineup and use the full salary and just optimize for it. And that was, and because I was like, I'm not going to mess with this. I have no chance of winning anything. All I'm really shooting for at this point is min cashing. So I didn't really do much with the late swap. I just, went to, I'm going to use my full salary and hope for the best, not really pay attention.
I did that too, and I backed myself into a 555 win.
I saw that.
I didn't mean to, but I backed into a 30K bink in the because I was playing the smaller field stuff. So I was playing 8 lineups. Of course, I threw them into the main contest, but I wasn't worried about like duplication necessarily, knowing that I got 8 lineups. I could sit on the couch. I know what the task is at hand. I know the projected ownership pretty much. I could adjust for anything. I could visualize what optimal lineups look like after certain fights, depending on their salary. That's how I would normally follow the slate, and then swap from there. But the thing with the late swap in MMA of how they screwed it up in advance, and then they screwed it up later. Is
in
that
execution? Yeah.
That people, I tried to make sure people realize that when I did my Friday show, that the fights lock 20 minutes apart, but they don't start at those times. And because there's typically 25 minutes in between fights, depending on, when the scheduled start time, like the first fight will lock at 1, but not start till 1:10. The second fight will lock at 1:20. The first fight's probably still going on. So that fight probably won't start till 1:35. And then the next fight, and then the next fight. So you get this until the main card, because then they go back to 4 o'clock for the main card, and the first fight on the main card starts at like 4:10. So like these last fights of the prelims and the last fights of the main card, they're gonna lock like 2 fights in advance. So if you're going in thinking that, oh, I could just go and see what I need before the main event and then swap, it's like you're gonna have to think about that like 2 fights in advance because it's gonna lock before then. So
you don't
time,
actually.
Yeah, so
you don't have all the information for each
right.
fight. You don't actually have all of the information that you would like to have before each fight.
Right. So every I had to monitor every lock time. So I'm like, okay, what fight locks this time, locks that time, and then compare to what happened in the fight. So like you go in the first was a women's fight that pretty much that busted. Natalia Silva put up 85 points at what, 8,900 or something, probably not optimal, and Bleda lost. And Bleda was actually decently owned. I had 2 Silva lineups. So like at that point, my Silva lineups are now pretty much dead for optimal. So now I'm swapping in those lineups to increase my win equity. So I'm just looking for fighters. To increase your win equity, you're more likely to take fighters that it's going to go to decision, right? Because then you get the floor of, if like, especially underdogs, if they lose, they may still score 45 points, right? Because they didn't get knocked out in the first round or anything. They just lost the decision. So like I was switching those lineups for min cash equity. And then in the other lineups, I didn't change because I didn't have any more information. But I only had Heastand in a lineup or 2, and he was popular in that mid-range. So once his score came in, I'm like, okay, the lineups that have Heastand, now that's min cash lineups. And the ones that don't, I'm playing for first place. But you can't wait for the fight once the fight is over, the next fight is probably locked already. So you don't have the ability for the next fight to go off. So you have to kind of plan a little in advance and see what the scores are. But the thing is that the main fight, my biggest swap was after the Tercios Natividad fight. I had Natividad, I think, in 3 out of my 8 lineups. And he scored 74 in a loss because that was a crazy fight. But Tercio scored 116 at what was he? 8,600. 8,600, I believe. So that most likely is going to be optimal. In large field, not necessarily in small field, but in large field, he's more likely to be optimal in the winning lineup in small field as well. But once I saw that, I'm like, okay, I don't have any Tercios. I didn't play him at all. So I considered all of my lineups to be non-winning lineups. So I was swapping Jennifer Maya in, who was the $7,200 dog in that Moroz Maya fight. It was the lowest owned fight on the slate because it was it was like minus 360 to go to decision. Like it was like heavily probable go to decision. Why not get my win at? Why am I playing Chase Sherman or Ian Cutelaba, who could easily get knocked out in the first round? They could also score 120 points. So, like, they have high ceilings, but their win equity and their floor is much lower. So, like, by the end of it, I had like 5-6 lineups with Jennifer Maya in it. And it just so, and I did it purely to, okay, let me get min cash equity on this slate. Yeah, but what happens if she's the only winner underneath 8,000?
Yeah.
And
worked out pretty well.
She was optimal, right? So, like, I back into these lineups that have Maya in it, and I have Natividad with 74 points, which beat out some other fighters, and I win the 555. You know, once the main event gets canceled, and it's like, okay, now I got Waldo Acosta. Now I have people that I didn't originally have. I put Cortez Acosta there. I can move up from Fialio to Salikov, and there you go. I put in like Demopoulos. I didn't originally have either, but it's a Oliveira versus Demopoulos was another, probably most likely more than 50% of the time goes to decision. So I'm like, if I need win equity, if I need floor, I want to take these fights. So I ended up with I'm
awesome.
Sitting there. Demopoulos had an optimal score. Maya had an optimal score. Didn't have Tercios, but I didn't need him when Maya is only 13% owned, and Natividad was only 14% owned, even though he lost with 74 points. And I'm like, oh, wow, heading into the last two fights, I actually have a shot at this 555. Right? All I need is either Njoku not to score over 110 and Cutelaba not to score over 67. So I'm like, let's go Kennedy second round knockout. And that's exactly what happened, right? Cutelaba took the first round, scored a bunch of points, and then got knocked down in the second round, like Cutelaba typically does. And there you go. But, I mean, those are the swaps. Like, I see so many people, because I answering questions in the YouTube chat on Friday, and then in Discord on Saturday, everyone thinks the opposite. They think that the two things that they think, Neil, that's incorrect. To use late swap. I mean, there are plenty of people like, well, who cares about late swap? It doesn't give you anything.
Right,
it's like,
right.
Those are the idiots, right?
Yeah.
Those are the swap slappies, right? That are not going to swap. I don't know. Are they going to swap? They're not going to. They only swap if there's an injury or something. We already know they're idiots. That obviously doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The people that think, oh, now I want to play early fighters, because once I get the information from the early fights, I could then construct my lineups and then be like, oh, optimal fighter is first. Now I can just play all the chalk. And the second thing is that if I have a losing fighter, I need to switch to lower owned fighters. Right?
So I would say those were both my first instinct, and then I thought about it more before. Like, so I understand the instinct for that for sure. For the early fights, like, well, then I'm gonna know like what I need based on and then I was like, wait, no, but you're still gonna have not as much information early on as you will later on in the card. And
well,
so
because they're
I
only thinking about one. They're thinking about the upside instance, but not the downside instance. And in the other regard, they're still thinking of upside instance. So like the easier thing to talk about is the min cash equity. Like dude, once you don't have a fighter that's optimal, and this is a large field contest where most likely the optimal lineup will be the winning lineup. It's going to be either the optimal or very close to it. So if you're sitting there and some guy puts up God knows how many points and you don't have them in a lineup, you're not competing for first place anymore. Like you don't have a shot there. And because
I think we had a great scenario with Heastan this week. I think he was actually the perfect scenario of like, you knew 76 points or whatever he had was not going to be enough to be optimal. So it was like at that point you knew that you had to adjust for min cash equity.
Yeah, but people do the opposite. The thing is, people do the opposite without understanding what the payout structure looks like.
Right.
Like we go over this in the first like 2 chapters of Theory of DFS. In the 15-hour masterclass, that you need to make decisions based on the payout structure, and the payout structure of these GPPs are hockey stick like. So like the top 1% makes up like almost the entire hockey stick, the blade part of the curve.
Yeah.
So it's like if you don't have that optimal fighter that's 24% owned or whatever the hell he was, like you're pretty much not playing for any part of that blade. You're now paying for the stick part of it. And the difference between coming in the top half of the stick and the bottom half of the stick ain't that much different. 1.5x to 3x, right?
Yep.
So to make I got to change to 6% own Danny Roberts. I got to, dude, you're not competing for first place anymore. You're competing to just get on the stick.
Yep.
So if you're just competing to get on the stick, typically in MMA, if you get 5 wins, no matter what they score, you're probably going to cash. So once you have that first loss or the first non-optimal fighter, your goal should be to, how can I get 5 wins? How can I at least get 4 wins? I mean, sometimes on some slates, 4 wins could cash you. 4 wins with decent scores. 3 wins, probably not. So once you have 1 loss, don't worry about the ownership of the fighters. Just worry about, can I get 5 wins? It does. Well, what happens if this guy at 9,500 puts up 120? It's like, who cares about that? Why don't you get 5 fighters that all put up 80? Like, if you get 5 fighters that put up 80 and you're a losing fighter, you're probably still going to cash. So, just optimize for that. You have 2 losers in your lineup. Now maybe you have to be, a little bit ownership driven. 3, if you have 3 losing fighters, now you gotta hope the chalk fails. Now it's very hard to min cash. But when people are like, I have a losing fighter, I got to switch on to 8% own this and get off it. It's like, you could pass more of the field that way, but you could pass let's say all of those fighters you pick win, you're probably still not getting to the blade of the hockey stick. Okay, now you have a 4x pay. You did all of that risk for 4x rather than 1.5 or 2x. Why don't you just take your min cash, rescue it, and move on and survive in advance? So, so many people are in the mindset of, how do I get to first place? It's like, this isn't NBA or NFL where there's 500 options. There's 24 fighters. You don't have that one guy. You're done for first place. It's not going to happen. So don't even try competing it for first place. And then, on the other hand, if you have an optimal fighter, now it's a matter of how can I try to win first solo?
Yep.
Now it's more the fact of what combinations, who's in, as the card goes on, half the card is done. It's like, well, I have Demopolis and I have Tercios and I have this. And you go okay, what combinations could get me as less duplicated to first now? Because now I am competing for first place. So maybe that's when you get off of a chalky fighter. Maybe that's when you take you have a 49-9 lineup and now you're bringing yourself down to 49-2 to get a little bit more different. You have the option to do that now. People think in reverse. And in the other example with the upside, they go, well, what happens if the first fight of the night produces an optimal score? Now I'm able to switch around, and that's what they're thinking. I got to play early fighters, so I know what those scores are. It's like, but how about think in terms of the first fight and the second fight happened, and none of them are optimal lineups. You have the same information. The thing is, you don't have them in your lineup. So now,
you're not stuck with them now.
You're not
you have
stuck with
more
them
information,
now.
and you can make whatever choices you want with the remaining fights.
Right. So, in game theory, the more information you have, the easier it is, the closer it is for you to make more optimal decisions. So it doesn't matter the time of the fights, first fight, second fight, third fight, as far as what happens if they score a lot. Having later fighters is more of a benefit than having earlier fighters, because by the time you get to switch your lineups, you'll have ownership and scoring information. So in my little spreadsheet, I've added an optionality column, and I weight the position of the fight just a little bit, not ridiculous, but just a little bit. So it's already compensated when I determine who to roster, which means the main event gets a little bit more juice. And it just so happened, obviously, on this past card that a lot of the better fights were on the main card anyway. Yeah. So I was playing most of those as well. But so many people were like, I got to play early fighters, I'm play early fighters if you think you can get an optimal score. You should be playing them in the same way that this person could score 120 points for whatever the price is, but don't prioritize and go, I'm going to play a bad fighter that's over-owned just in case. It's no, it's better off if the fight busts and now you have information. Now you've eliminated a lot of lineups and now you have information. Now you know that if the $7,300 dog busts, you know that, okay, the 72, 71, 7,000 fighters, I mean, like, once we start going through the slate and favorite after favorite wins, the underdogs on the remaining fights become way more valuable because you almost can't make, you can't make a lineup without an underdog.
No.
And if it's a slate where only one dog wins, you need to have that dog. Imagine before the slate, you wouldn't have known that.
Also, you'd be more likely, I would assume, on most slates, you'd be more likely to stack the main event because the underdog is likely to put up, like at that point, after you know that none of the underdogs have won for, like, say, the first 5 fights or something, you know that there is some possibility that a 40 from a cheap fighter could be enough to be optimal. So you'd be, I would think, more likely to stack the main event in that scenario.
And also more likely to stack the main event to rescue min cash equity.
Yeah.
Right? So you get one losing fighter and you have this like mid-range main event. I'm not talking about the high range where it's like 9,400, 6,600. I'm talking about like 8,400, 7,800 main events. And you're like, GPP, you wouldn't stack it. You don't want to take yourself a loss right there. But you get a losing fighter early with only 30 points. It's like, you know what I should do to rescue points? Let me just stack the main event and win equity the rest of the lineup and be fine. I mean, I know it's not winning first place, but a lot of your return, your ROI, comes simply from min cashing lineups, enough lineups that your downswings aren't ridiculous, but knowing what game you're playing. So I had 8 lineups, and I look at the lineup, what game am I playing? Look at another lineup, what game am I playing? And I thought I was all playing for min cash in all of my lineups, and I backed into a good, I think that lineup came in 11th in the main large field.
Oh, really?
GPP or something. Yeah,
Wow.
I'd maybe the 6th optimal or something like that. Because it was a very low scoring slate. It was a lot of decisions. Yeah. And of course, the main event was canceled, and that was heavily owned, so a lot of the later fights were way higher owned than they originally projected because what else can you swap
Right.
to? And then they screwed up the late swap.
They screwed up the late swap. They did not refund. I did not get a free roll based on their screw up of the late swap. So I actually missed the period where I was out doing yard work during the period that it happened. But for people who were unaware, they locked all the fights. And then I think what happened is they locked, the fights that were coming up at their given lock time. And then the main event was canceled. And I think that they unlocked it after the main event was canceled, possibly for the purpose of, well, if we unlock it, then people have 6 fights and they don't have to stack. I don't know if that was the reason. Obviously, I'm not, behind the scenes with DraftKings, but my assumption would be that was the thought. I'm not positive about that. Could have been just a screw up. But either way, it was, people had been able to see the ownership. So I think that was probably the decision they made was, oh, we should let them, this fight hadn't started yet, let's just let them pick from that fight too, not thinking about the fact that we've already shown you the ownership for this fight. So there was like a 15-minute window, 10 to 15-minute window where people could swap to or from a fight that you'd already seen the ownership for.
Right, but I mean, then why do it in the why punish the people? Because that's what I originally thought. Like out of my 8 lineups, 2 were refunded.
Okay,
and one of them wasn't cashing. It wouldn't have cashed, and I got my money back. The other one would have 2x'd. So actually, I broke even, right? Because one didn't and one did, right?
So you in that 10 to 15-minute period, you did do a couple late swaps.
Yeah, well, because I thought when it originally canceled, I went to swaps, and I was playing more of the main card than anything else, and I had 2 lineups that only had one remaining fighter, one fighter that had a score that was locked, and even though the last 2 prelims didn't even start yet. They were both locked, like we discussed before with the scheduling. So now I'm sitting there. I have 5 fights are on the main card. 1 just got canceled. So now there's only 4 fights on the main card. Well, I have 5 spots to fill. So that means I'm forced to stack one of the main card fights because these other 2 fights that haven't started yet, they haven't unlocked, and I can't do anything with. So I switched those lineups. I switched the lineups that had Spivak in it because I didn't have any Derek Lewis anyway. And then, so I saw in the Discord, someone's like, oh, they unlocked the Johnson-Zumagulov fight. So I'm like, oh, okay. looks like someone at DraftKings paid attention and like they need to unlock at least this fight just so people have something to swap to.
Mhm.
Uh, so I just thought that who cares if they saw the ownership? It's going to change anyway, right? Because who cares?
Yeah.
It's the Johnson Zumagulov fight. So on the two lineups that I had stacked because I had no other choice, one had Johnson, one had Zumagulov because like you're opening a. How am I supposed to know I'm not supposed to do that? You literally opened it. I mean,
Exactly.
like
Because they allowed it. Like, so you
they
assume that
allowed
it's
it.
within the rules. Usually, if you can't do something, you just are not. You can't do it within the app. So if the fact that you're able to do it, I think it was reasonable to assume that this is something they were doing intentionally. And also, there were people. I mean,
What
Big
happens if you
T.
didn't know it was unlocked? It was locked to begin with.
Exactly. Well, that's what Big T said. He didn't even know that it had locked. He just saw that he was able to swap and made a few swaps in that period. And as you saw with Big T, he lost like $20,000 on the refunded fights
Well, he
because
lost
he had.
10,000. He lost a qualifier on it.
Oh, is that right? Okay, I
Yes.
thought he had lost a little bit more than that, but yeah, he was pretty pissed off about that, and I get it. I think that was I would have been pissed for sure in that scenario. If you make a swap and it works out, it's successful, you look like you're winning a lot of money, and then they say, nope, we're going to void this because of the timing where you made the swap, and for some people had no idea that it had been locked or that there was anything wrong with it. So,
And it's not like it mattered. It's not like, oh, it was accidentally unlocked while the fight was going on, right? It's like
right,
what, like, oh, they didn't lock it in time. And it's like, oh, dude, the dude got a first round knockout and it's still unlocked. And now I understand that if
yeah.
that type of thing. Like, dude, this fight wasn't going to start for another 20 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
So yeah, we should explain what actually happened for people who were not playing MMA. So rather than what they did during USFL when they showed ownership for everybody at the lock of the first game, when they made a similar screw up, they had if you won money on the slate, you got to keep whatever you won. If you lost money, they refunded up to the amount that you entered, so that you would break even on the slate. That was kind of my assumption was what they would do is if you won money on the slate, you win the money. If you lost money on the slate, they would reimburse you for any losses. That was not so this was a different scenario because you didn't get to see every fighter's ownership, and also it was only like a 15 minute period where it was possible to make swaps after seeing the ownership for two fighters. So what they did instead was anybody who had made swaps involving that fight in that 15-minute period just had their entry fees refunded regardless of what outcome that lineup actually saw. So in the case of Big T, it was they refunded rather than him winning $10,000 or whatever. And I'm sure there were other people in that similar scenario. For most people, it probably wasn't all that impactful, but for some people it was. So it was. But it's interesting because so obviously those people feel like they got screwed. Alternatively, though, if they had done the same thing as they did for USFL, a different set of people would have been screwed. The people who would have won without those swaps would have alternatively been screwed. So it was kind of a tough situation, a
well,
rock
how
and a
about the
hard
people that
place.
swapped? I mean, look, I got a refunded lineup on the lineup that already had 3 losses in it.
Right. I
Right,
mean,
like
that's great.
that
Yeah, it
type
was.
of thing. Like, dude, like if you would have known that, you would have been like, "Wow, I got 4 losses. Let me switch to Zumagulov right here and just get
Yep.
boop, give me my money back. Thank you."
Yep. Exactly. There was. If we had known what they were going to do, it would have been a different approach for
Well,
many people.
well, the thing is, we all knew that they were going to screw something up. That's why you
Of course. I
played.
mean, that's why I played. I only played because I thought there was a real free roll possibility. Yeah. But
But you didn't cash. Did you swap at all? Because it's not a matter. Because some people were looking and going, "Oh, if anyone has Zumagulov in their lineup, they're disqualified." It's like, well, what happens if you started with them? Well,
right.
DraftKings knows. They has all the logs of all the stuff that you do. So like,
Yeah. It
I
was
was
only
more
if you swapped.
the thing that I was concerned about with my 555 lineup that won was did I swap and then swap back? Like it was the type of thing like in this lineup, did I put in Zumagulov and then change it to something else and go, okay, I think that's now that I could do that, I'm going to play that and then switch something back and go
Right.
like, okay, well, I'm going to take him out and go because I was swapping the entire night on all my 8 lineups. So maybe I didn't pay attention. So I was like,
Yep.
here's a lineup that didn't have either fighter, but do they have it that I logged a swap in that 50-minute time period, even though I didn't end in that I didn't end up with that lineup. So I'm sitting there going, I'm just gonna wait until I pay out because I'm not gonna count. I'm not gonna count my money until
Yeah,
till everything
generally
gets
a good
sorted. And
approach.
also, do you know, I didn't, so for the people that had their money refunded, what were the placement? No. I think it was the placement in the contest. What they did, those lineups just got a 0 score.
Yep,
So everyone
they
moved
were.
up. I mean, that's the main reason why they did it, because, like, if you swapped, quote, illegally, right? Like, imagine you're in first place and you swapped illegally. They disqualify you, give you your money back, but the guy in second doesn't come in first. He just gets the second place money. That's the worst thing, because then people will be crying out that DraftKings is doing that and keeping the money, right?
Yeah,
They didn't have to
right.
pay out that money. So obviously they had to move up the placement. So that's why I think in USFL it was just basically what happened in USFL. What happened is that they
So it was a full weekend
they
slate,
put
right?
out all the ownership, even though you could swap everything if you wanted.
Yeah, so they put out at the lock of the first game. Presumably they locked the players from the first game, but it was, a 4-game slate over an entire weekend. So it was on,
Oh, so it was
Saturday
one
afternoon.
game, then the next game, then the next game, then the next game. So it was all
Yep.
staggered.
2
Okay.
Saturday, 2 Sunday. And at lock of the first game on Saturday, they locked the players who were supposed to lock, but then they also showed the ownership of every other
No.
player on the.
I think of what happened. I think they locked everyone,
Okay, and then
and
unlocked.
obviously that you can't lock everyone. There are games tomorrow, and
Right.
it's supposed to be late swap. So when they locked everyone, they showed all the obviously they have all the ownership of everyone, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oops, let's unlock the other 3 games." But it's like now we know what everyone has,
Yep.
unless they swap off of it. And they said the best solution here is to just free roll the whole thing.
Which I think is true for that particular scenario. I think
Mhm.
that they made the right choice because there was plenty of time for people to make adjustments and stuff. So it was definitely the right choice for that one. I think probably the fairest thing that DraftKings could have done for this MMA slate was to pay out for every scenario. So like if you had won by swapping, like
Yeah,
Big
but they
T,
would have
pay
to pay
him.
out so much.
I know it would have
They
been
would
so
have to
much
pay out
money.
basically 2 winners of every contest.
Yeah, exactly. Which they can afford to do, but I can understand why they chose not to do that. They just screwed individuals.
The one thing I don't understand, Neil, they own a sports book, DraftKings Sportsbook. I could go on the DraftKings app, Sportsbook app, right? Now, not in Kentucky, but I could go across the river to Indiana, right, in a legal state, and I could bet on the Johnson Zumagulov fight, or would name the fight, up until the time that they say fight. Like I could go. They could be entering the cage, and I could bet on the whatever the lines are. I could bet on the over under. I could bet on the method of victory. I could bet on all of that. And once they say fight, everything locks, right? You can't bet on those things. Now the live lines come up for everything else. So obviously they have some mechanic where they know when the fight starts. How come that can't? But no, somehow the DFS people they live in another building or something that code
They can't
base.
press that button. Yeah.
Right, they can't press that button. How come we have? We have no idea. We just have to set lock periods, and we have to hope that's for the best. Like the same for NBA. Like NBA, the game locks at 7:30 but doesn't start till 7:40. And they go, well, that's the best we could do. That's the televised start times. It's like, dude, I could go to your bet on the app. You'll let me bet on the game until they're literally in the center circle, ready to throw I could still bet on the closing line of this game. Then once that ball's in the air, I can't do it anymore. Like, dude, why can't you just
It seems easy enough. I don't know. I don't know what the
Right.
answer is. Yeah, it does seem if you can do it in one place. I mean, well, DraftKings also, so you don't play best ball, but like DraftKings, we get live scoring for DFS, and then best ball does an update for like days after the contest is over. It's like why do we not get live scoring for best ball as well? DraftKings just I don't know. They don't seem to care as much about some of their products as others, I think, is
Well,
what it comes
definitely
down
not
to.
best ball.
Yeah, they don't give a shit about best ball.
Right. And then you have FanDuel that doesn't care about DFS at all because
No.
they don't even mind leaving the merge tags in contest names.
Yeah. FanDuel is something else.
And FanDuel wouldn't take advantage of, now there's MMA late swap and some people don't like it. Let's put up a bigger contest. Nope. Still here's a 5K to first garbage.
Yep. I don't think I've ever played MMA on FanDuel just because the contests are so terrible.
And also the scoring system's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Now there's World Cup. Are you playing some World Cup soccer?
No, sorry to disappoint you. I assume you are.
Yeah, but I mean now I have to wake up. I had to wake up at 7:15 in the morning. I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
have to
thank you.
wake. I mean, obviously the 8 o'clock game starts and the starting lineups come out an hour before. Like I don't need. It's only 3-game slates. I don't need a full hour or whatever. I could wake up at 7:15, roll over, take a look at the first starting lineups, and then switch out whatever I need to switch out. Because I'm not playing 150 lineups. I'm playing anywhere from like 4 to 8 lineups, and I play mostly cash. I play the smaller field stuff mostly, so it's not a big deal that I need so much time. But yeah, so basically for the next 3 weeks, I'll be waking up at about 7:30 in the morning, and then get tilted when I lose money after 3 weeks as someone that's like best sport is soccer DFS.
Are there a lot of like inactives or like news you have to wait for soccer? You can't do
Yeah.
it the night before? Okay.
Well, no, because the starting
Starting
lineups,
lineups, I suppose. Yeah.
don't come out till an hour before kickoff. And remember, this is staggered start time, so there's an 8 o'clock game, an 11 o'clock game, and a 2 o'clock game. So you have to make your lineups not sure what the 11 a.m. starting lineups are. And soccer, you only play starters, right? Because
Okay.
it's like baseball substitutions. It's like that the
They don't
person
play
may
that
come
much.
on, they may not come on, they may come on and play 5 minutes. I mean, like you don't play substitutes, so you have to see who's
Right.
in the starters. And these are national teams. Yes, 90% of the time, the predicted 11s are about the 11s that they're going to be, but this guy's in, this guy's out. Oh, that means this guy's going to take more set pieces and more corners or free kicks. You're going to have to like know that type of information and then be able to swap, at 3 different time periods. And then also do the same thing that we talked about with the MMA late swap. What
Right.
game are you playing? Are you playing for min cash? Are you playing for first place? In this first slate, the Iranian forward Taremi at 6% scored 2 goals. Bukayo Saka, the winger for England, scored 2 goals. It's a 3-game slate. Pretty much, if you don't have both of these guys in large field GPPs, you ain't playing for first.
No.
Right? So you should kind of thinking in those terms, even when it comes to NFL. Right? The 4 o'clock games, and people are like, oh, how do I win in GPP? Now, double ups are different because there's no blade for the hockey stick, so everyone's on the same playing field. But if you're playing for first place, and you see that you got Josh Allen 12 and a Damian Pierce 3 in your lineup, like your goal is to min cash now. Like you ain't winning. You ain't like. Do you have Amari Cooper? No. Do you have Dawson Knox? No.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about so for NFL, you probably are still trying to go to lower owned plays if you're just trying to min cash with such bad outputs. I guess they're kind of chalky.
But no, you could go to lower owned plays, but you're not going to high variance plays. You're going to low variance, like in the same thing that I did with the MMA. Like Jennifer Maya was the lowest variance fighter because she had a high floor but a very low ceiling.
Right.
And she's going to be lower owned. So it's like, okay, how can I lock up 45 points at lower ownership? Play her, right?
Yep.
And if she wins, she scores what? She scored 78 points. And like same thing in NFL, it's like, okay, you have your in the late games, let's say you had who's chalky in the later games this past Sunday?
I mean, outside of the quarterback, CeeDee Lamb was chalky.
Lamb. Okay, so let's say you had CeeDee Lamb. Why not swap to T. Higgins?
Right.
Like
lower owned, still
lower owned and similar range of it's not ridiculous. Tyler Boyd. Be like, well, but Tyler Boyd is, his ADOT is so much lower and his touchdown equity is lower. It's like, can he reasonably get you 15 points? Well, yeah. It's like if you could save that money and go 1,000 down and then take your defense up to a better defense or take your tight end up to a higher floor tight end, that would help you min cash more because the differences in the range of outcomes of these players isn't that dramatic. Where it's like, yeah, CeeDee Lamb is the best point per dollar play, but Higgins is only like 1.5 points below him, and Boyd
Right.
is like 3 points lower than him, and you use the money in your other spot to go up to someone else, like, you should be making these swaps. And it's not a matter of, but it's much different than, I'm going to swap CeeDee Lamb, leave money on the table, and play Noah Brown.
Right.
It's like, well, you don't have to do that. It's like, well, I want to benefit from the time that CeeDee Lamb gets injured or something. It's like, no, all you have to do is have a player that could beat his score more often
Right.
than
Even
not.
if even if Noah Brown hits 50, you're not winning the contest. So just
Right.
play the likelier outcome for him in cash.
Right. You know that 50 to 60% of the field has Lamb, 10% of the field has Higgins, and 2% of the field has Boyd. But the projection difference between Lamb and Boyd is not that dramatic that the ownership should be like that. So
Right.
at least play that guy. Play someone else that is lower owned, lower projected, but still not like absurd. But some people go and they make crazy swaps. Like, I got to swap this, I got to swap that. Dude, I had Damian Pierce in my cash lineup. I didn't swap anything because I got lucky in cash, and I don't think I got lucky. I think I played a fine lineup, but yeah, DraftKings cash. It always helps when a quarterback that is almost 3,000 less than the most popular quarterback outscores him by 17 points.
Trying to think who. I mean,
I played
Daniel Jones
in cash over
Yeah,
Josh Allen because I didn't want to play two tight ends when we have 3 running backs under 7K playable. So I played Drake, Pierce, and Montgomery instead of the double tight end. And I also didn't want to play 2 4K wide receivers. I didn't want to play Paris Campbell and Kendall Hinton or Paris Campbell and DPJ. I'm like, how can I avoid doing that? And I'm like, I could play Diggs. If I'm not playing Allen, I got to play Diggs, right? I played Knox at tight end. So it's like, okay, if Allen goes off, at least I have 2 of his receivers to get points with that. And then there was like no one in the mid-range. There was no way to really fit in McLaurin in that build. So I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to play Lamb and Diggs. What's the only concession I need to make? I got to play Daniel Jones. Yeah. I'm like, it's quarterback.
Against the Lions,
against the Lions, right? A rushing quarterback against the Lions. Okay. And it's not like he projected bad. He was like the 3rd point per dollar quarterback on the slate, right? Like, it was a choice between him or Mariota. I almost played Mariota because the Falcons had a slightly higher team total, but I'm like, I've watched this guy. It's like, outside of the rushing touchdowns, I don't trust this guy throwing the ball at all, right? Yeah. So it's like, I don't care about this. Like, no, I'm playing Daniel Jones against the Lions defense. I ain't screwing with this Mariota. I've lost enough money in props with this guy. I ain't gonna lose in fucking cash games.
That was probably the right, and he also, I think, for cash games, Mariota had at least some possibility of being replaced mid-game with a bad game, whereas Daniel Jones, I don't think you had that threat. So, yeah, good call.
So is the answer now to just play Justin Fields at any price?
Apparently, no. We finally saw him. He put up 20 fantasy points in the first half this week. He put up 3 fantasy points in the second half on DraftKings. So
they didn't do any
somewhere
design
in that range.
runs. I think he injured it. Didn't he injure his leg or something?
That was pretty late. He injured, I think, his shoulder. I might be wrong. Yeah, he at one point he went down and people were saying that he was like saying, "Oh, it's my knee," but then later on the reports actually said it was his shoulder. I think. My approach has been, don't play Justin Fields at this high ownership in under any circumstances, and it has bit me 2 weeks in a row, and this week didn't bite me, but didn't really help me all that much either, because instead of playing Justin Fields, I played a lot of Josh Allen, and that was horrible. So, and Lamar Jackson, I liked all the other. I was like, well, I'm going to just pivot from, I'm not going to play Justin Fields. I'm instead going to play Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen, and of course, Jalen Hurts got there, but he threw a touchdown to Quez Watkins. So like, I wasn't playing Quez Watkins anyway. So just didn't really work out for me.
It was a low scoring slate in general. I mean, like,
I loved it. I actually thought it was the best slate we've had so far this season for NFL. Just because there wasn't really anybody that was a have to have him kind of play on this slate. I don't think.
I think you needed to have
Paul. Yeah. By the end, it was Paul.
Any of the had to haves were not, like, I looked at results DB. The top 8 scorers on the slate were all single digit owned.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, Jamal Williams had 3 touchdowns, but he only had like 24, 25 fantasy points. So he wasn't really have to have. But yeah, you're right. Pollard did end up fitting into that
Pollard,
bucket. But
Cooper, Adams,
yeah,
Knox at tight end put up 14, and not many tight ends put up anything. The Commanders or Patriots defense.
yeah.
You
But they were
needed to
just
have,
lower
but I'm
owned. So
just
yeah,
saying
I
that
guess there were a few
I
that were.
think that the point that you're making is that there were a lot more available combinations. Like no one, because of their ownership, would have all of those people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
So
You
you
could
needed to
have a
have some
snowflake in your
combo of
lineup and
them.
still win something, right? Like,
Yeah.
because there was so low scoring in general. So like I made money in GPP on DraftKings, even like I made a couple $100 on a lot of my entries. I had the Brissett stack the other way, right? Instead of Al. I mean, I played Lamar, I played Allen, I played Brissett. I mean, I played one Russell Wilson lineup because I'm just going to keep on donating one
Me too.
lineup a
I
week.
played a good amount of Russell Wilson, I think.
Because how do you? Because Sutton projected decently and Dulcich projected decently.
Hinton also projected decently
Right.
for Stokastic. Yeah.
Right. So like, why not? Okay, pair them and put Jacobs on the other side or Adams on the other side.
Yep.
Why not? And now you see why not, right?
Yep.
and then you got Mariota. I played, and I played 2 Burrow lineups. Burrow, Higgins, Hurst, and it's just a matter of like every lineup that I'm going to describe everyone's lineup. Every lineup I played had some really good players in it, and then just garbage snow. Yeah, great. I have a Brissett lineup with Cooper and Gabe Davis and it's like, okay, you know what that allowed me to do because I spent so cheaply? I could get Saquon Barkley's 5 points.
Yep.
Thank you for spending up at running back. So it's like
I did that
I'm
too.
sitting there going,
I thought Saquon looked
not
incredible. Played like 40%, I think, Saquon. And yeah, that bit me.
Right. So like all the chalk failed, but all the everything like it's not like
Right.
It's not like this is the slate that all the chalk failed. It's like, well, no, this is the kind of slate that like almost every player failed.
Yeah.
Like if you scored like someone, I was talking to someone and they're like, oh, you played so and so at tight end, they only scored 5.5 points. I'm like, so did all the other tight ends. Like,
right.
Like that's who cares that they only scored 5.5 points. So you're taking a look. Oh, DPJ only scored 17 points. It's like DPJ was one of the highest scoring wide receivers because no one was scoring points. So that's a lot of points.
Yeah. It was a weird slate, but that's I think those are generally my preferred slates, are the ones where there are a lot of different ways to win. People were pretty live late in the contest. I mean, I wasn't really live, but I had a couple entries that were in the top 1,000 pretty late, and with no real shot at winning.
Did you see the Pickens drop at the end of the game?
No, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, George Pickens dropped like absurdly easy pass at the end of the game, and it would have won someone $1 million.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There was someone with
Pickens
in 7th place, $15,000. If Pickens catches that ball, goes right up to the first.
That is pain right there. I mean,
I assume that person wasn't watching because I would.
Let's hope they weren't watching.
Right. If you were watching that and you saw, and all you're doing, you know what you're doing because it's the last game. It's the only thing on. You're like, all I pretty much need is like, kind of like a Pickens cat. Like, give me a 15-yard catch, like, and I'm gold. And you're just you're zeroing in on number 14, right? I believe is number 14. You're like on every. It's like it's at the end of the game. Just throw to 14. Just throw to, and here's it. And you're seeing the ball in the air, and you're like, here it is. Doink.
Oh, God. Maybe somebody else had Pickett in the same lineup. We had Pickens and Pickett, and they would have passed him.
It's the end of the game. You could see the standings, right? You could see.
That is just So it's not something that you've actually heard from. You just saw this.
I saw it on Twitter.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's as brutal as it gets. I felt terrible just watching Showdown the other week when Marquez Callaway was wide open in the end zone, and I had like, I don't know, 15%, and the field had 3%. I actually thought I had more at the time I was watching it. So I saw Andy Dalton throw it to him wide open in the end zone, and I was very excited and saw it go over his hands. I didn't even know like what was at stake. I just knew I was well above the field, and that was a heartbreaker for me. I can't even imagine the Millie, just watching the Millie sink away.
Wasn't there a showdown last week or something where the last play of the game there was some lateral or something like that?
Yeah, so it ended up. So it was.
And then there was a scoring. What was that scoring correction?
Okay, so it was. So this is where we had OCD, OBV, Kurt and Frankie Bourne were in first with one other player as well. Had the first place lineup. I know
Carney and was then, in there also.
Yeah,
there was some known player. It was like a three dupe lineup versus another like 4 dupe lineup.
Yep.
That like it went this way and then it stat corrected to something else, and I don't know what happened that had to be corrected. So you explain it.
Okay, I'm trying to remember what it was exactly. So it was a pass to what was the team that was involved? It was the.
Was it the Eagles?
Eagles, maybe. Yes, Smith? Eagles. Pass to Quez Watkins, I think, and then Quez Watkins lateraled it to Devontae Smith, and then Devontae Smith fumbled it, and it was recovered by the defense, and they ran it in for a touchdown after time expired. The defense scored a touchdown.
And they never credited the Devonta Smith with a fumble lost. Or they did, and then they took it away. I'm assuming.
I think they may have. I think they may have initially credited him with 2 fumbles lost. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Because they did correctly credit him with the fumble. So I looking at the end, it looked like the stats were all right.
Or was the defense not given a fumble recovery?
I think, I do think that it was the defense was the difference in the lineup. So it might have been something to do with the defense not getting a fumble recovery and just getting the touchdown initially. Maybe that's what it was.
Or vice versa. They got credited one when they shouldn't have gotten credited. Because it's a really weird thing, because we saw that game. I think there was another showdown where this was a main slate where a defense didn't get, because this happened like 2 weeks ago. A DST didn't get a touchdown credited to them on DraftKings. I think FanDuel actually gave it to us because what happened is that the defense got the ball, got it like an interception, fumbled it. The offensive team picked it up and then fumbled the ball again, and then the original DST fell in the end zone for a touchdown or whatever it was, and it wasn't credited as a defensive touchdown because the offensive team wasn't the offensive team anymore. There was some technicality on that because Weird. Possession went back and forth, that the original team is no longer considered the defense anymore. I have no idea. All I know is that FanDuel eventually credited it and DraftKings never did.
Huh. I was not tracking that very closely. I don't think I had anything invested in. I do remember there being some weirdness of DraftKings not crediting what was in just looking at the box score was well, the defense clearly scored a touchdown here. I didn't know that was the reasoning though, that it had been fumbled back and forth multiple times. That's a weird way of scoring things.
We bet a lot of money on this shit.
We do bet a lot of money on this shit and don't even know all the rules. So what are we doing?
Right. Don't know the rules. Subjective scoring of takedowns and reversals in MMA, right? Yeah. And it's oh no, that's no problem, right? Late swap that doesn't work, scheduled start times that who knows when they are, right? We got players getting credited with points that they shouldn't be getting credited with other players. Then DraftKings or FanDuel paying out 10 minutes after the slate is over without correcting anything.
Right.
It's okay, here you go. It's whoa, hold on. Hold on a minute.
Doesn't make any sense.
And then you still get your VIP rep that changes every 4 months for some reason. That texts you, we have a promo offer that if you play $50,000, we'll give you a free 4444, a $4,000 entry into the whatever mega whatever. And I'm over 50,000 over the weekend, dude, that's 5 times my highest volume for this weekend. Don't you track this stuff? I mean, what kind of promo is it? Oh yeah, we'll give you a free entry into this $4,000.
Is it because they saw that you had just won 30,000 and maybe wanted to press you?
I always because I'm Onyx and I get those
Okay.
like
Yeah.
high volume offers all the time that I can
I don't
never.
actually get them that often. I get them occasionally. I don't feel like I get that many. Like, do you get like text message offers or
Yeah,
just
text
like in your?
message
Okay.
or in the app or something.
Okay.
But it's like sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's like, oh, if you play 10 entries into the whatever thing, we give you this, 50 DK dollars, and I'm like, oh, okay, I could do that, right? Or like if you play in this contest in the next 3 days, or like stuff like that. But when they're like, 5 times the normal volume that you play, if you do that, we'll give you this. It's like I ain't doing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know what you're trying. Has it ever worked on me? No. Like maybe it works on other people, but I ain't gonna.
It sort of worked on me on FanDuel a couple weeks back, where they gave me a buy two get one free in the 22-22, I think, on FanDuel, and I was like, I've never played this contest, but I guess that'll be my FanDuel entries for the weekend. So I ended up doing it.
So the $2,000 entry contest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would never do. I would say screw you. I'm.
Yeah, I only did it because it was like, well, if you're going to give me one free just for entering two, that's a good enough deal that that'll be my only volume on FanDuel for the day, and that's what I ended up doing.
Right, but I'm much more risk averse. I'm not going to commit that much to one lineup or anything like that. Although for the Mega World Cup, whatever this World Cup thing, they've been running these satellites for God knows how long. It's a 555 Mega World Cup group stage. I think on the 1st of December. I'm gonna have to use fucking lineup HQ to make this, because I just keep on, because they run these 7-man qualifiers. It's a 7-man satellite, so it's a $90 satellite for a 555 ticket. And the other sports they like never fill. Like I played them in NFL and it's like 4 out of 7. It's me, McLovin, and like 2 other people that are playing. So I have like I think I'm up to 22 tickets. I mean, I'm not even sure. I think I may have more tickets than they allowed the max entries into the contest. I don't know how big this contest is going to be. But I've just been MMA. So like in MMA, they'll run 2 of those. It's 2 out of 7 with 5 minutes to go. So I'm like, how do I not enter this?
Yeah.
And it's not like if it was a 2 out of 7 for some tennis contest, it's like, I don't play tennis. Fine. You take the overlay.
If you already know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. I'm already going to be playing this contest anyway, so why not put it in? So I got so many tickets. I look at my balance and I go, well, I look at my ticket section. It's like, dude, between like the king of the pitch and all these qualifier things, I think I got like $20,000 worth of tickets.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I gotta, because I also do the MMA qualifiers, so like I got like 5 tickets into the $500 qualifier. I got like 8 tickets into the 140 qualifiers. I'm like, dude, I gotta use these before the qualifiers end. I still don't have a goddamn seat into the fucking tournament. I still haven't made it.
Oh no, really?
Right, but I don't mind that much because most of the money I'm spending is from the ticket satellites. So a lot of these qualify, like, oh, the 140 entries. It's like, dude, I entered like $16 satellites for most of these tickets. The $500 is like some $70 satellite that that's okay. I gotta try for these, right? So that's like one of them that like Big T would have won one of the $10,800, because that's how the value of the thing is. Because I was in that contest. Like I mean, I know because I came in 3rd or something, so I knew what I was up against because I saw Big T in there.
Yeah,
and I knew that when I saw Big T and he had Zumagulov, I'm like, nope, he ain't winning this now. Well, he wouldn't have won anyway because he had Kudalaba in his lineup. That's why it's a little bit deceiving, because after the Kudalaba fight, like he wouldn't have won anyway because Kudalaba lost. But if Kudalaba would have won, if Kudalaba would have won, Big T would have had much more of a complaint than not. But he didn't have the correct fighter, and got a 24-point loss in his remaining slots. So it's a little his tweets are a little bit deceptive.
He did send out a tweet that was like, this is what my winnings were before the main event. So it was like, well, that doesn't really mean anything.
No, but truthfully, before the second to last fight.
Okay.
Only because in his screenshot, it showed him winning the 555.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was winning the 555 before the second to last fight, but Cortez Acosta was in the second to last fight.
The two chalkiest fights are coming up. Yeah.
Right. But I was winning before the main event because I had Cortez
Oh, really?
across and I
Okay.
passed Big T. That's why I'm looking at the screenshot going, that ain't before the main. That's before the second to last fight.
Okay.
Because, dude, I'm sitting there in first place hoping that the other two fighters in the last fight fail. So that screenshot is not from. That's not from before the main. That's from before the second to last fight.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess it was.
But still, he got screwed. I'm not saying,
He definitely got
but not
screwed.
maybe for not the amount, not for that as drastic of a difference as it was. But I still believe. I even thought when they unlocked that fight that they did it
It was
at
fair
its
game.
speed. Like, well, what's the big deal or whatever. I mean, like, I wasn't even
And
thinking that if I swapped, maybe I'll get disqualified. Like, I wasn't.
No,
I'm
because
like,
they allowed it. They've never done
unlocked
anything
it.
where
What am
they
I
allow
supposed
it.
to do?
Yeah.
The fight never
If
happened.
they allow it.
If Neil, it would have been much different if they unlocked the fight that already happened. Right.
Right. Then you'd
it's
know.
like, oh
I'm
my
doing
God,
something
I
wrong.
could switch out my losing fighter with someone. Like, then I could understand you getting disqualified. But, like, dude, it didn't even happen yet.
Yeah. It was, I think it was a pretty unfair decision by DraftKings generally. Like,
But is this going to make you want, is late swap in MMA going to make you want to play more or less?
Less, by far. It's Saturday. Like, if we're on a Tuesday, maybe I'd play more. Maybe I'd be able to track it all day. That's my lightest day of the week from a work standpoint. But I'm busy on Saturdays. I got stuff to do. Can't be tracking
you like
MMA all
plugging
day.
in your lineups. It's a 4 o'clock card or a 6 o'clock card. Lock happens then, and you go out and do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, and I just check my lineup every half hour. I mean, I still check pretty regularly, even while I'm doing all this stuff, because it's fun to sweat MMA. But I'm not like I'm not having to think about what changes I'm going to make in different scenarios and adjusting as I go. I don't have the mental capacity to do that while I'm out, with friends or whatever it is I'm doing on a Saturday.
But even if you're doing that, it's not my experience on Saturday. I mean, yeah, my experience on Saturday was very fun when you win $30,000.
Yeah, it's a good experience.
But not a good experience watching, because at every moment I'm like, what locks next? Okay, what locks next?
Yep. There's no relaxing.
And I'm just dealing with 8 lineups that I'm manually changing. I heard from other people that, like, yeah, I missed half of this fight because I was still in the middle of swapping my 100 lineups at my computer doing this. And then I missed all of that fight because I was swapping all of this. And it's like, it's just not enjoyable anymore.
No, I'm like, I can think of ways to do it, but to do a 150 set later on is just so hard to do with an optimizer. You can do it with like groups. Like if I have this fighter, don't allow having this fight. I don't know. You can do different things, but definitely is going to be much tougher for people who are MMEing with late swap, unless you have the tools that somebody like Nerdy, Tenor, or Brick, or you maybe to some extent have some of those tools to actually make these choices for you to an extent. But for guys like me, just regular MMEers who use late swap just as it is, it's a different kind of game than any other late swap that we have.
So you're not going to be a swap slappy?
I don't think so. I don't think that I have the time for it.
But it still always amazes me that no matter how much you could explain it to someone, people think you could explain it a million times. Like, no, this is good. So many replies of, oh, now, hey, you were complaining about it earlier in the week. Aren't you happy you could swap out? It's like,
I saw a lot of those on Twitter. People victory lapping. Oh, you guys were idiots for not liking late swap, and look at you now. It's like, no, I still hate late swap. I still think it's horrible.
I'm willing. Dude, that Cerrone Lausanne fight that got canceled mid-card, I had 88% of on that slate.
Yeah.
I took the
sucks.
0. I'm like, it sucks, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's, Romanoff on the 2 slates before that was the chalkiest fighter at like 9,500. Of course, I had like 70% of him. It's like, to me, it's the cost of doing business. I understand why people would be upset. It's not like I don't understand that. But from a mathematical perspective, like, it affects everyone equally. Right? Now, they've in place something that it's not going to affect everyone equally, because you're the slappy that's stupid, that doesn't understand that you should be swapping after every fight, regardless of a cancellation, and you're giving away 10 to 15% of your money every slate, like over and over and over and over again without even realizing it. And then even on the slates that, let's say, you built the winning lineup and never swapped. Well, 4 people just swapped onto it by the end. right? So instead of you winning 50,000, you won 12,000,
Right.
right? And their response would be, I'd be happy to win $12,000.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to explain to people, and some people just want to do it for fun. They don't really care about the money involved. So I guess maybe people are like, it's not fun for me if my fighter gets canceled. So I can see that. If you're just playing for fun, if you're real casual, I can see liking it. But
at least say that.
Yeah.
If you say to go, I know I'm giving up EV by not late swapping and paying attention and stuff like that, but I play for recreation. I just like scratch off lottery tickets. I know I'm going in trying to get lucky. In the long run, I'm a loser, but it's more enjoyable this way. That's the people we want to be playing, right? The people that know that they're going in, putting the money in bad, and doing it because they enjoyed putting their money in bad,
and they're going to keep doing it.
Right.
Those are the ones you want.
But then don't argue with me that you're not putting your money in bad. Just say,
right.
I don't mind putting my money in bad to have for entertainment. You do that at the casino, right? You go, I'm going to go play roulette. And a double zero and give away 5.25% of my money because I just enjoy roulette and I enjoy the experience. Fine, but don't say that you have some system that you could. No, I'm not giving up edge by playing this. No, of course you're losing. You're losing. Yeah. You're doing it for entertainment. So that's the only thing. So it's the people that want to argue that, oh no, this won't affect me at all.
Yeah,
I think you people are stupid. Why are you complaining about something? Like, dude, we're complaining about something that makes us more money. But now we just have to put more work in order to do it and have to beat off the other people that are also trying to do the same thing at the same time. And we saw this even this past Saturday. The contest came close to not filling.
They didn't there was a 555 or something that filled like maybe 210 out of 240.
Right.
They were not all filling.
I played an extra line because I played.
Oh, that was yours. That was the one you won. Okay.
Right. That was the one I won. And I played an extra line. Normally I would play one lineup into that.
Yep.
But I played two liners because I saw it was going to probably be either overlay or rake free. So I'm like, screw it. I'll let it.
Might as well. Yeah.
Right.
Worked out.
But we're going back, just a programming note, going back to every other week. I mean, after the NFL season, typically we'd go to every other week. But I don't know. It gets boring talking about NFL slates week after week after week after week after week. So we're going to go back to an every other week schedule. I know last week I was sick anyway, had a cough.
Yep.
But so don't get all up in arms if next week you don't hear an episode.
Looking at you, Justin Freeman.
I may throw in some interviews and some random people here and there. But yeah, so it'll just basically be every other week, me and you, Neil, just catching up on what's going on.
Sounds good to me.
DFS world, right? And we had stuff we waited 2 weeks and we had plenty of stuff to talk about.
It's true. Yeah, right? this MMA news. Got to see you talk about it with Nerdy Tenor before talking about it with you. That was fun.
Right. I could have had him on this show, but I thought, give him the big platform on the Roto-Grinders, only because it was so new right at that time. It's like, I don't know, do I do an episode of this? Do you come on because a lot of times Nerdy Tenor's watching the pregame show anyway. He's in the chat hanging out. So I'm like, well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. And I want to get his insight of maybe, the concepts that I was thinking about may pragmatically not be correct or whatever, but eventually, pretty much he said, like, no, you're absolutely right. And for me to program this is not that complicated, but it involves me hanging around on Saturday nights that he doesn't want to do.
Yeah. Common theme, I think, for a lot of players. Like a lot of players who are capable of doing it are still going to choose not to because it's Saturday night. People are busy. Yep. And I think, like, for me, I'm like, it's probably easier if you're like young and single. You can just like not worry. Like you probably don't have as many plans on Saturday night, but then I suppose those are those people who need to be making plans on Saturday night. I mean, depending on personality, I guess.
Do you see DFS players?
I'm aware of DFS players being relatively free on Saturdays.
Right. So I'm like, what does this matter? Right. What plans do I have? I have nothing. You don't have
I mean, you have your wrestling every Saturday. You're going to new wrestling events every Saturday.
Not Saturdays, no.
Oh, okay. Not on Saturdays?
No, it's typically Wednesdays or Sundays.
Okay.
Or sometimes I went on Friday. The Impact was here locally.
Yeah.
But no, but if I needed to, I would go to wrestling on Saturday and take a slate off. That's perfectly fine. But it's like, I don't view Saturday night as like, we're going out on the town, me and you. It's like, no, this is more like, hey, We could sit on the
I mean,
couch
we're
and
not
not watch
usually.
sports.
Yeah, we're not usually. Yeah, we're not going out on the town typically, but like I'd say more Saturdays than not, we've got plans with friends. So it's
And you don't got
we keep
kids.
busy. No kids. Yeah.
Right. So you're going out on the town. You don't have to get a babysitter or whatever.
Yeah. Going
Right.
out on the town being like dinner with friends,
Right. I
I'm
know
not like
whatever.
going
Whatever
out
out on the
clubbing. Yeah.
town would be or something like that.
Yeah.
Me, I don't have any friends and I don't go out. So
Perfect.
what else am I doing?
Perfect for you.
Right, perfect.
Winning money, winning 30,000 a weekend probably.
Right. My wife's perfectly fine with that. I mean, I said I won. The thing about my wife with sweats, my wife has told me she doesn't want to sweat.
Yep.
Right. She doesn't enjoy that. So
Yeah.
like the last fight last night, it's on, and I'm like, I need Kennedy to put up less than 110, Kudalaba less than 67, and basically I'm rooting for nothing to happen. I'd love the fight to go to the third round because pretty
Yep.
much the whole thing busts kind of by then. But my wife is like, she doesn't want to know that's what I need. Just like,
Yeah.
don't say anything. And I'm not the type of person that jumps up and down. I could just watch. It looks like I'm just watching the fight. And then after that, then tell me what it is. Because to her, it's like, oh, if this happens, I win this. Like all of a sudden, it's like in her head, the money's already here. So
Right.
anything else that happens is like if it comes through, she's not excited because it's like,
Right.
I thought that would happen anyway. And if
Yep.
it doesn't happen, you're like, now I'm upset. Right?
Yep.
So it's like, don't tell me anything. So then once obviously everything came in, I'm like, I won. Oh, okay. Like how much? I got 30,000. Oh.
It's a
Can I
decent
get stuff
weekend.
from my Amazon wish list? Like that's
Yeah.
like literally just
Yep.
I got stuff on the Amazon. Like how much? Like just a couple $100. I go get it. There you go. Done. There you go. There. The first
Nice.
rule of DFS. People really don't get it. That is the first rule of DFS. You win,
Share.
you
Share with
bribe
your
your
wife.
significant other. It
Yeah.
is the most important thing because if you do not do that, you will only hear shit about why you're spending so much time making lineups and doing content and watching shit and whatever. But once it's like, oh, that trip to Hawaii? Yeah, that was that. It's like,
Paid
oh,
for
okay,
with
yeah,
this.
yeah. Take all the time you need. Take all
Yep.
the time you need.
Yep. Good advice.
Is your wife like that?
No, I mean not really. My wife is from a salary standpoint, at least she's the breadwinner of the family. She makes good money, so she's not, counting on any money from me.
Oh,
But
so you're
it's
the
still it is
deadbeat. So you're the
nice.
deadbeat now.
I'm the deadbeat. Oh, for sure. I've always been the deadbeat. Yeah, but it's I mean even when I was a lawyer, she was making more money than I was. But it's still nice to be able to, spend it on the hot tub. Like we got a new hot tub and it was expensive with DFS winnings and stuff like that. So,
What does she
still
do
nice.
for a living?
She works as a marketer at 3M.
Okay.
I'm not wearing any of my 3M stuff right now. I've got the Scotch Brite hat that I wear all the time. I've got a shirt that I wear all the time that were just free from her.
Is there a DFS equivalent to her where she comes home? It's like the new campaign, 14% profit. I got a bonus, and then that's like winning a GPP, or not? It doesn't work
Kind
like
of.
that?
Not exactly. I mean, she does get like have incentive plans and stuff, but yeah, not exactly the same as DFS.
Right. So when you see 3M commercials or anything on, you're not like you're not sweating her stuff, her work.
Yeah. No, I don't get that sweat. Sadly, I don't get that secondhand sweat.
Right. But much different than my wife, who's up at 3 a.m. talking to mentally unstable people on the phone.
Yeah, it's a different kind of job.
Right, and
A lot of stress there.
Definitely not the. She does the more important work than me and gets paid like garbage. Right.
Yep. Yep.
Welcome to the world. Right. It's like I'm the breadwinner, the guy that wakes up at 10:30 in the morning, rolls out of bed in the pajamas, yells at people on YouTube,
Yep.
and then puts soccer players in a lineup or UFC fighters from a spreadsheet, and that's the breadwinner. And then you have the suicide prevention counselor saving people's lives, going, yeah, only have this job for the healthcare. That's
Yep.
about as valuable as the job is.
Yep, that's a sad state of affairs. I don't even want to say just the U.S. It's probably everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world. I mean, probably fairly similar. Not getting paid well for a lot of social work.
Okay, so player Q DFS on Twitter, Neil Orfield.
As long as Twitter is alive.
Who's your next guest? I haven't listened to the Degenerate 75 episode. Who's coming up? Who's coming up next? Well, Neil froze, so either he's dead or the show's over. Are you back? Nope, he's dead. So for Neil, I'm Jordan Cooper. That's been another episode of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. Hey, you're back.
I don't know what you heard. Ben Ross is up next. My entire screen froze for some reason.
Oh, okay. I was about to stop the show or outro or whatever like that. I'm not gonna edit this out because I'm who cares?
Nobody cares.
Let people on the podcast or whatever go. Oh, it just whatever. You're gonna miss what the last minute of you styling Ben Rossa?
Yeah, Ben Ross is up next.
Okay, so you basically ran out of guests, so you need to go in house.
I've had a lot of people asking for Ben Rossa. Yeah, he's interesting because he's a gambling guy, not just DFS but sports betting. So it'll be a fun, and I always enjoy his shows, so it'll be fun to have Ben Ross on.
Okay, so now that everyone knows that, listen to the High Stakes podcast and get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. Remember, the advanced course is out. 10 chapters, new chapters of audio, and also the Excel tools that James McCool has developed and constantly updates. You get the portfolio trimmer, correlation matrix, the lineup simulators, everything. Go to theoryofdfs.com. Go check it out.